Once you have a trainer of trainers and a skill coach like AJ Jawad, and to understand the art of negotiation will always be quite fascinating. Before we were going live for this session, we negotiated on a lot of topics with Mr. Jawad. And as usual, he came out with a topic that why not let's negotiate on this particular topic, art of negotiating. He said that this particular aspect and facet, how you can actually negotiate for a thing without showing that you are making a person bulge towards yourself, or how you are asking him what we say in somewhat crude language to toe your line. But at the same time, you're not allowing that person to feel that actually you are hammering your own point. And that's all art of negotiation. Art of negotiations would also have some interlapping of thought processes in the mediation. Like what Mr. Jawad normally speaks while he trains is that he gives an example that there's an orange, one takes the orange and one takes the juice. And the other of the marmalade, how do you go about it? That's the entire process. But once there is Jawad, people say that you shouldn't actually negotiate with the time. You should straight away ask Jawad to take over the lead and then take things forward. Over to you, Jawad, with the baton.
Thank you, Vikash. Welcome to everyone, and thanks for this opportunity. Very happy to be here, as usual, in Vikash's program. So, as I had posted on the social media, the question that I want to ask is, should negotiation be a fight? Now, just imagine that you're going for a very important meeting. Let's say it's either for a new job or for discussing a deal for your company that is very important for you and your company, or even with your family members for discussing, for example, how the division of your parents' assets is going to take place. And you know that the person you're going to be meeting is a tough nut and can be unpleasant and can be rude. Or maybe you're just meeting this person for the first time and you simply don't know what to expect. So what happens? Do you feel like you have butterflies in your stomach? Your palms are clammy, there is sweat on the brow, there is tension in your body. So why do you think you feel this way? Is it because you expect your counterpart to be tough, or maybe to stonewall you, or maybe your counterpart is going to put up a tough fight? And are you thinking, how do I outsmart my opponent? So here you're looking at your counterparty as an opponent. So you're thinking, how do I outsmart my opponent? How do I browbeat my opponent into accepting my terms? How do I get a good deal for myself? How do I put my opponent on the mat? How do I squeeze out of my opponent the maximum benefit for myself? Now, here's the reality. Your opponent is probably thinking and feeling exactly the same way that you are thinking and feeling. Why is that so? Is it because we feel that negotiation is a fight, that we are in a kind of battle of wits where the smartest person wins? Or, maybe it's a game of nerves and it is all about who blinks first? Are we looking at our opponent as a threat? Someone who's out to get us, against whom we have to have our defenses up? Now let's just hark back a little to our ancient past. Now imagine yourself as a hunter-gatherer, wearing a butt flap and foraging for food in a dense forest. And suddenly you see a saber-toothed tiger looking at you from the shrubs. How do you feel? Is it the same feeling that you get now that you had when you were in a negotiation with a tough opponent? So the question is, what is common here? Is it the threat perception? So obviously it is the threat perception, isn't it? Now imagine a different situation. So you have been invited for a dance by a friend like Vikash. And Vikash is a Punjabi, so it's going to be a gala party with a lot of fun, dancing, food, drinks. And imagine how you feel now. Do you feel all excited, happy, and joyful? Do you feel cheerful? There's a spring in your step. You're smiling all the time. You're humming a nice tune to yourself. You're thinking of all those new dance steps that you have been practicing and would like to show off. So I just want to see if I can share this dance video with you. Okay, sorry, I think I'm not able to.
Screen sharing?
No, that particular thing that I wanted to share. Yeah, it's there. One. So how did that look? I mean, there was perfect coordination and they were moving in sync with each other. And both of them were really enjoying themselves, didn't they? But imagine a fight where, basically you imagine Mike Tyson's boxing match or something. How does that look? So the question now is, what is this difference? I mean, why? How do these two different reactions happen? Okay. So one is when you're going for a negotiation thinking it is a fight, or if you go to a negotiation thinking it's a dance. So why can't you treat it as a dance? So what actually happens to your mind or your brain when you're going for a fight or when you're going for a dance? Now, neuroscience gives the answer to that. Now, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, right? So let me just share with you a picture of the amygdala so that you can know what exactly I'm talking about. Can you see the screen? Okay, so this is the brain as viewed from the underside and front. You see the thalamus here. This green part is the thalamus. And then you see what is called the amygdala here, this small brown structures on both sides of the brain. Now, it's very interesting to see what the amygdala actually does. So what happens is this amygdala actually is a storehouse of memories that have been accumulated over millennia of evolution. Okay? It's actually a survival kit that helped us to survive when we were roaming around the forest and mountains, hunting and foraging for food. Okay? Remember, wearing only the mud flaps. Now, every time the amygdala perceives a threat, like for example, a tiger charging towards you, it triggers the secretion of hormones called adrenaline and noradrenaline. And these hormones actually trigger different emotions, which are very appropriate for the situation. Now, among these, different emotions, we have anger, we have disgust, we have sorrow. But one of the most powerful emotion that we feel is fear. Now, similarly, when you perceive something that is in the nature of a reward, like for example, seeing or tasting or feeling something that is pleasant and nice, the amygdala triggers your body to secrete serotonin and dopamine. These are two hormones that make you feel good and happy. Or sometimes if you see somebody whom you really love, it triggers the secretion of oxytocin. Now, why am I talking about the amygdala and the hormones and the emotions when it comes to negotiation? You might be wondering about that, right? How many of you are wondering about that? Are you thinking, what is this guy talking about? We are talking about negotiation, and now he's talking about amygdala and emotions and hormones that are secreted in our body. Right. Yeah. So I think almost everyone is thinking of that. Very good. I want you to think of it. Right. Now, emotions are very powerful. Okay. Emotions like fear trigger the fight, flight, or freeze response in us. Now, emotions like happiness and joy have the opposite effect. Now, studies have shown that we can control these emotions, especially when they are making us do something which is irrational or excessive. Now, this is what is called as emotional intelligence. Now, the question is, what do we do when we are in that negotiation that may perhaps be a very crucial one for our life, for our career, or simply for our own mental well-being? Like, for example, discussing the behavior of a colleague or a partner. The question is, does it have to be a fight that triggers adrenaline? Or can it be a dance that triggers dopamine in you as well as in your counterpart? So how do you do that? Now, let us remember one thing. Negotiation is not always about dollars and cents. It's about human interaction. It's about the relationship that we are sharing. So how do we engage with our counterpart to get to a better understanding and to a space that's good for both of us? Now, what is very important here is not to approach the negotiation with a competing mindset. Because when we treat our counterparty with whom we are going to be negotiating as an enemy or as an adversary who we have to overcome, or with whom we have to we have to defeat the person and we have to outwit the person, outsmart the person, then it becomes a sort of a competition between us and our counterparty. Instead, we have to approach the negotiation with the mindset that we are there to collaborate with our counterparty to get to an agreement that is good for both of us. So it's not a game of one-upmanship. We are not there to outsmart our counterpart, but to get a deal that works for both of us. Now, most negotiations are either about getting into a new relationship, maybe a new job, a new business deal, or something that may be more personal. Or it is about dealing with a problem or situation that may have arisen out of an existing relationship. Like, for example, any dispute that might have arisen in a contract that we have entered into with our counterparty. Or maybe it is about, employer-employee relationship. There's a dispute. There's an already existing relationship, which has led to a kind of a dispute that has arisen. Now, either way, what is important is the agreement that you reach has to be one that is sustainable and long-lasting. Now, it can't be sustainable if you or your counterparty are feeling threatened or insecure, or feeling that you or they have been shortchanged or taken for a ride, or you have been outsmarted. So the question is, how do we go about making the negotiation a pleasant experience instead of a slugfest? Can anybody tell me how can you do that? Any ideas that you would like to share? Yes, Rukmini. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. What are you saying?
Vikash, you'll have to unmute Rukmini.
Okay. No, you are unmuted. You are audible.
No, Rukmini is not audible. I mean, I'm asking you to Rukmini Menon, she wants to say something. I asked a question.
Yeah.
She wants to answer that.
Yeah.
I think, can you unmute everyone so that, because
I can do that. I can do that.
So just repeat your question, I think the right answer to your question, Jawad, would be by, understanding each other's needs.
That's a good way to look at it, Rukmini. See, basically what we are talking about now is, see, negotiation is normally treated as something which is an adversarial process. Okay, that's how we look at negotiation. Because the idea is basically to get a good deal for yourself, to outsmart the other person, okay, to get whatever you want, and without conceding anything that would be beneficial to the other person. That's how normally we look at negotiation. And that is called as hard negotiation. Now, the question is, the other party is also feeling the same way. When your counterparty is approaching the negotiation, your counterparty is coming with the same kind of a mindset, because your counterparty also wants to defeat you, wants to get a best deal for himself or herself, wants to outsmart you, wants to, do something that would, put you down. So how do you deal with that? Okay, one answer that Rukmini gave is a very pertinent answer. Like, for example, you look at the other person's needs and do you look at your own needs? So that is where, because normally when you go into a negotiation, you go with certain positions. Okay, this is what I want, right? The other party also is coming with the position, saying that this is what I want. Okay, so the question is, what exactly is needed for both of you to be able to come to a conclusion that would be satisfactory to both sides? So one answer is to look at the needs of the other person. But how do you make the process itself something that is pleasant, something that is not very, in the sense that you don't exchange, you don't treat each other as enemies, you respect each other. How do you get to that? How do you make that? How do you create that situation where your counterparty also understands the importance of negotiating with you and getting to a deal which is good for both of you? So I'm going to be talking to you about how to make negotiation a pleasant experience instead of a slugfest. Okay.
We have allowed unmuting, and those who want, they can also participate by chatting.
Yeah. Okay, I see some chats here.
Yeah, on the YouTube also you can share your chat.
Situation for both parties should make win-win situation. Yeah, very good. But how do we go about that? How do we make the negotiation itself a pleasant experience instead of having that? Because we just now saw that when we approach a negotiation, we are approaching it like a fight. Okay, so we are having those butterflies in the stomach. We are tensed up. We are nervous because we don't know what the other side is going to throw at us. And the other side is also going to the same kind of an experience. The other side is also feeling tensed up. So when you go into the negotiation, first of all, you don't smile at each other, right? You may not even be smiling at each other because you're there to, you're already nervous, and that nervousness shows. Your tension becomes a sort of a very infectious thing, because tension can be very contagious. We all have mirroring neurons. So even if one person in the room is tensed up, everybody else can get tensed up because they pick up those signals, those vibrations, because we have those mirroring neurons that reflect it. We get the same kind of feeling that probably we would see if you see a tiger or a lion charging at you. Right? What do you feel when you see a tiger charging at you? What do you feel when you see a tiger charging at you? I see a lot of answers here. By letting both parties give opportunity to put their views, very good. To know what the other party wants and then decide what is best for you. Yes, cannot unmute, says host is not allowing. Okay. Second, do the background work of knowing the weakness and strength of the other party. Very good. So fear is what is actually driving both sides, right? So fear is affecting your negotiating capability, your ability to look at the larger picture to explore deeper, to see it's all about what you want and whether the other side is going to give it to you or not. How do I manage to, get the best out of this for me? So that's all you're thinking about. And that is what is called as hard negotiation, because Roger Fisher and William Ury talk about hard negotiation. Now, I just want to look at it from a different perspective in this session. I want to look at it from a neuroscientific perspective as to how we feel, what kind of emotions we go through when we are approaching a negotiation. Now, essentially, as many of you pointed out, one of the very powerful emotions that we are experiencing is fear. Okay, so that fear is, what if we lose this? What if the other side does not agree to our terms? What happens to the deal if, supposing I'm not able to convince my counterparty about what exactly I want? And your counterparty is also going through the same kind of feelings, right? Now, how do you overcome that? How do you start off in a good way, in a very positive way? How do you deal with the negotiation? How do you set the tone for the negotiation? Because what is happening now is your amygdala is getting triggered. It is secreting adrenaline, noradrenaline. It is generating the emotion of fear in you. Okay. So how do you overcome this? How do you use your emotional intelligence to be able to overcome this and set the tone for a negotiation that is friendly, that is collaborative, instead of being competitive? How do you do that? So there are some answers, again, very being empathetic, very good, by way of informal negotiations, being optimistic. Yes, that is all the frame of mind that you carry with you when you go to a negotiation. Now, how do you actually thank you, 8787. Sir, come to topic. We are not student of medicine, nor you are. Sip some water, understanding each other's needs. Okay, I'll have some water. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about me. Okay. So let me get to the topic, right? Thank you for reminding me about that. So when we are talking about all these emotions that we are experiencing when we are going to the negotiation, how do we control those emotions and how do we set the tone for a negotiation that is going to be fruitful for us as well as fruitful for the other side? Now, here's where a person called David Rock came out with a brain-based model for collaborating and working with others. He called it a SCARF. Now, SCARF is an acronym for 5 social domains that trigger the same threat or reward response as you would see when you actually face a physical threat, like a tiger or a lion charging at you. So what you need to do in a negotiation is, SCARF is an acronym which stands for these 5 social domains, that is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. So what do you do to set the correct tone in a negotiation so that you are able to reach an agreement that is beneficial for you as well as beneficial to the other side? How do you win the trust and confidence of the other side? Because what is the foremost thing that you need to do in a negotiation? You need to build the rapport with the other side in order to be able to get a deal that is good for you and good for the other side. Now, how do you build the trust and rapport? Now, that becomes very important in a negotiation, to which we pay very little attention. So the first is status. So first and foremost, respect their status and ensure that they respect yours. Okay, whoever that might be on the opposite side, that's a person who has got a concept of their own status in their eyes. So show your respect to that and ensure that they respect your status also. Be polite. Don't be rude. Be respectful, not condescending. Acknowledge that this negotiation is as important for them as it is for you, and you are equals at the table. The next thing that you need to address is certainty. Now, because there is an element of uncertainty in your mind that is triggering you to be nervous, to be tensed up. You don't know what's actually going to happen in this negotiation. And you have to understand that the other side is also feeling the same thing. So how do you assure them that you're there to reach an agreement? So make sure that you tell them how important it is for you to reach an agreement and get them to acknowledge that it is equally important for them to reach an agreement. And what is important is an agreement that works for both of you. So give them the certainty that you have come there for the purposes of reaching an agreement and not to waste your time or their time. The third thing is autonomy. Because what happens is when you enter into the negotiation, you have a plan of action in your mind. Now, what you try to do is you try to impose that plan upon them without acknowledging or without understanding that they may be having their own plan. They may be having their own agenda. So you have to respect the right to determine what is important for them and discuss with them how the process should be structured to get to the best outcome. So that becomes very important. So you need to spend some time to understand what exactly they have in their mind and how they would like to go about it. So what happens is framing the agenda for the discussion becomes very important. So you have to prioritize the issues. You have to agree with the other side that which issues are to be prioritized and which issues are not to be prioritized. Now, the fourth is relatedness. Assure them that you are with them in the process of reaching an agreement. Okay. So normally, what is relatedness? Relatedness comes when you feel connected with the other person. Now, relatedness gets affected when you make the other person feel that they are on the other side, where you make them feel that it is us versus them, when you make them feel that they are the opposite party. So assure them that you are with them in the process of reaching an agreement. Make them feel that you are both on the same side and your common goal is to solve the problem together and or reach an agreement that is good for both of you. I always give the example of when you talk about, negotiation or mediation. We normally see the problem as a sort of a gap between the way we are thinking and the way the other person is thinking. We see a sort of a chasm between the two of us. So we see each other standing on the opposite side. So the chasm is the problem that we need to overcome. Now, what a good negotiator does is not just merely build a bridge to cross from one side to the other, but make the other person feel that, look, we are both on the same side and we have to cross over to the other side. So the problem, separating the people from the problem, is what Roger Fisher and William Ury talk about in their classical work known as Getting to Yes. And that's a book, if you want to be a good negotiator, you need to read that book. Okay? So that becomes very important, that you assure the other side, your counterparty, that both of you are on the same team. And the problem that you have to solve is a problem that is affecting both of you. Because normally when we are in conflict, when we are in disagreement, we see each other as the problem. Now, the last thing that you have to make sure is fairness. You have to ensure that the negotiation is fair and balanced. You have to be honest. You need to be transparent. You need to make it clear to them that you expect them to also be fair and transparent. Be very clear about what you want to reveal and what you don't want to reveal. You have to protect your interests, but ensure at the same time that their interests are also protected. So asking the right kind of questions becomes very important. Now, I would just like to share with you some tips. What exactly you need to do before you enter into the negotiation. First is strategy. You have to carefully analyze the problem. Discuss with your people, with your team, what exactly, how the approach should be. What is your bottom line? Where exactly is the walkaway point for you? What exactly are you trying to achieve through this? What are your long-term interests? So carefully analyze what exactly is it that you're trying to achieve. Always prepare your arguments for what you're going to be explaining to the other side. When I say arguments, I don't mean it in a negative sense. What I'm saying is, if they ask you questions and you have to answer them, or if you want to explain your interest to them, have a proper explanation for that. So it becomes very important that you are able to explain to them what exactly you're trying to achieve through this. Okay. And for that, you also need to be ready with the right kind of questions that you ask them about what their real interests are. Okay, so those questions should be open-ended questions that you ask them in a very positive way, in a way that does not make them feel defensive, in a way that makes them feel that they need to answer those questions. Okay. Number 3, be very clear about your partner and partner. Now, what exactly is your partner? What do you mean by partner? I'll write on the chat. Now you're going to negotiate something. Okay, let's say that you're going to negotiate a business deal. Okay, where you're thinking about entering into a joint venture with somebody, or perhaps buying somebody's property, or you want to sell your property to them. So what is your partner there? The partner is a question that you ask yourself. If I don't have this deal, if I walk out of this, what am I going to get outside? Right? So what is it that I get? Do I get a better price? Do I get a better deal in the joint venture? Am I able to sell my property at something much higher than what they are offering me? So you need to be very clear about your matter. Now, what happens is sometimes what appears, for example, if supposing you're negotiating a dispute that has arisen in the course of whatever business transaction, or something that has affected the existing relationship between the two of you. The question you need to ask is, now, if I don't settle in this negotiation and I go out of this, what are my alternatives? Can I go to the court and make this claim against the other side? Do I have a good case for that? Now, let's say that you come to a conclusion that, yes, you discuss with your lawyers and you find out that you have a very good case and you can go to the court and you can fight this. So your partner is clear in your mind. Okay, this is my partner. Now, the next step you do is test your partner. Is it really my partner? Supposing I'm claiming 10 lakhs from the other side. Okay. And they're offering me, let's say, 6 lakhs. Now, if I go to the court, I have enough documents to show that I can claim those 10 lakhs. But what happens if I go to the court? How long is it going to take for me? How much is it going to cost me? Am I really going to succeed? Are there any loopholes in my case? Is my partner really my partner, or is it a partner? Worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. If I don't settle today and I go to the court, what is it that I'm going to get from the court? And how long is it going to take me? Sorry, my alternative spelling is wrong. What am I going to get from the court? And supposing I get a decree in my favor. It happened in one of my cases. We fought against, we had a major arbitration against a Netherlands company. So what happened was we succeeded. We got an award for almost 75 or 80 crores. But the problem was when we got the award, the other company was wound up, underwent liquidation. So how do we deal with that? So is my partner really my partner? Mr. Sanjeev, I'll just come back to autonomy. Okay, I'll let you know about that. So what happens is, when we test our partner, we know where exactly we stand. Because without understanding your partner and partner, entering into a negotiation is useless. Because it is a part of your strategy, it's a part of your planning that you understand this. But the thing is, You need to understand what is your walkaway point, because your partner and partner help you to understand at what stage do I walk away? What if the other side is not coming to terms at all? What their offer is something that is not just being satisfactory for you. It doesn't even address your interests and needs. So how do you deal with that? You need to have a walkaway point. You need to be very clear with that. Now, let's say that you have a claim of 10 lakhs. If you go to the court, it's going to take you 10 years to, let's say, recover that. And you're not very sure about how you're going to be executing the decree against them, even if you get the decree. So a reasonable, take for you would be, if they're offering about 7 or 8 lakhs, you may be willing to settle it. But what if they're offering you 1 lakh? Should you settle? Or should you walk away from there? And should you take a chance with the court? Or should you take a chance with some other mechanism for recovering that money? So you should be very clear about your walkaway point when you're going for the negotiation. Always when you're going for a negotiation, be prepared with a very powerful opening statement. Because you need to explain to the other party, why are you at the negotiating table? Why this negotiation is important for you as well as important for them. Always be empathetic in your opening statement and be inclusive. So every time you talk about, when you're making your opening statement, when you're explaining your positions, when you're explaining what your interests are, what your agenda is going to be inclusive. Always make it about us. Don't say that it's about me. Use language that is inclusive. Say that, look, it is very important for us that we resolve this, because I understand that even for you, this is something that can lead to a lot of problems. So is it for me. So it's important for us that we today come to an agreement as to how we are going to be resolving this. And if you're going to be entering into a deal, what kind of deal is it? And here is where, these are my strengths and these are your strengths. And if we are going to be entering into this joint venture, it's going to help us to make a better business, to build a better business. Or if you're going to resolve this dispute in this manner, it's going to be good for us. So make a powerful opening statement, which will be empathetic and inclusive. And always, it's very important that you pay attention to the process. Always try to normalize the process. Okay, and tell the other party that, look, we are into a negotiation now. And perhaps at the end of this, in the course of this negotiation, our situation, our relationship may become worse than what it is today. But please understand that that is a process. And we are going to be going through this process. And we should not be giving up at that time. I may look unreasonable to you. You may look unreasonable to me. But that is where we need to step back and we need to think what our priorities are. What is important is we need to continue the discussion. We need to keep the talks going. Now, I saw this movie called Oslo. I don't know how many of you have seen this movie called Oslo. It's on Netflix, I think. Okay, this is about a backdoor negotiation that was happening in the 1970s when, Israel and PLO, Yasser Arafat was heading the PLO at that time. And at that time, I think Yitzhak Rabin or somebody was the prime minister of Israel. And he and Yasser Arafat were engaged in a meeting in Norway, in Oslo. And there was a backdoor meeting that was happening between top-level officials of both sides. Okay. So what happens at this point is, at one point of time, it becomes, both parties become so agitated, the arguments become so heated that they don't know what to do. And they're almost coming to blows. And that time, the person who's mediating this comes and announces lunch. And that immediately what happens is, the moment they break up for lunch, they have lunch, and over drinks and cigarettes, they are again back to normal. So sometimes taking a break like that, when the going gets rough becomes very helpful. Always ask questions. Ask the right kind of questions. Why? The question why is more important than what? Why is this important for you? What happens if you are not able to settle today? What are your main interests? Why are these interests important for you? How are you looking at the situation? So always ask those questions to understand and get to where their interests lie. Because we are normally focused on our positions. What is more important is we focus on their interests. Don't hesitate to ask questions for which the answer will be no. Because no is the beginning of the negotiation and not the end of it. It enforces a sense of autonomy in the other side. Somebody, Sanjeev Bhargava asked me, what is autonomy? Yeah, it is the name of the movie is Oslo. The name of the movie itself is Oslo. Okay. So ask the right kind of questions and don't hesitate to ask questions for which the answer will be no. Once I was invited to speak about mediation to a group of, corporate honchos. Yes, Sanjeev, it is Oslo. So some of the top corporate heads of Chennai were there, and they wanted me to make a presentation about mediation. It was a part of a larger meeting that they were having for some other purposes. Now, at the end of that, I had only 2 minutes to make my presentation. Now, what happened was I had read this book by Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. And in that book, he says that always the answer no is the beginning of reaching to yes. Because what happens when your opposite party says no to you, they feel a sense of satisfaction because saying yes, they are not happy. But when they say no, it gives them a sense of autonomy that they have said no. And that leads to, later conversation leads to where you would like them to be. So what I did was I asked them 2 questions. The organizers came and they were very apologetic. They said, we are very sorry, sir. We just have 2 minutes for you. What do we do? I said, I don't need 2 minutes. I need only 1.5 minutes. So they said, all right. So I asked them 3 questions. I said, my first question to you is, would you like to lose control of your business? They said no. My second question was, would you like to lose control of your disputes? They said no. Then I said, why do you choose mediation? So I said, my 2 minutes are over. I'm going to sit down. And I sat down, and you won't believe it that they discussed with me after that for 20 minutes. They forgot about lunch. They forgot about the dinner. They forgot about their drinks. They sat down and discussed with me for almost 20 minutes about mediation. Because I got the answer that was no. Because once they say no, they feel a sense of relief. Okay, and that triggers their interest. So don't hesitate to ask questions for which the answer will be no. Now think of all the things that can go wrong and have the answers for those, because that is where your strategy and planning comes into much use. And if there is a weakness in your argument, be the first to point it out, rather than waiting for the other side to point it out. Because if you're able to point out the weakness of your own argument, you're taking the steam out of their attack. So they won't be able to attack you with that, because you're already admitting it. Now, one of the most important things in a negotiation is we always hesitate to make the first offer. Because we feel that when we make the first offer, we are committing ourselves. And we always have this feeling that if we don't make the first offer, what if the other side comes up with something which is better than what we have in mind? Now that becomes a winning point for the other side, because when they make the first offer, that becomes an anchor for all the subsequent discussions that we will be having. So what is important is we make the first offer, because for that, our strategy and planning is very helpful. We have our walkaway point, we have our bottom line, we have our ballpark figure, and we quote something which is above that, because we need to leave some space for negotiation. Now, when we are very clear about our first offer, now what happens is all subsequent discussions will be rotating only around that. Just to give you a simple example of that, when you're going to buy a pair of shoes, the price is already written over there. Let's say 2,999. Now, when you negotiate, with the shopkeeper for a price, and you say, I can give you, let's say, 1,500. He will say, come on, this is a shoe which costs 2,999 and you're offering me 1,500. So his offer becomes, his first offer becomes the anchor for all the subsequent negotiations that take place around the price. So don't hesitate to make the first offer. Always tell the story behind your offer. We are asking for X because of A, B, C, D reasons. Explain why you're asking for that. Because when you just make an offer and leave it in the air, they don't understand what for you're making this, why it is important for you, and why it's important for them to accept it. But when you explain to them, I'm making this offer because of this reason, and I believe that this will be good for you also, then they are forced to think that yes or no. Are we accepting this or we are not accepting this? So always make the explanation, be prepared with your explanation for why you're making that offer. And even if you're making any concessions, explain those concessions. Let them not think that you're offering those concessions from a point of weakness. You always tell them that, okay, I'm willing to concede this to you, but the reason why I'm conceding this is because I expect this in return. So don't leave it to their interpretation. So keep your explanation smart and nice, not weak and desperate. Never indulge in haggling, because we need to understand the difference between negotiation and bargaining. Okay, you can negotiate multiple interests. Okay, you can have package deals. You can make multiple offers simultaneously. So always have a number of options ready with you and discuss those options one by one. Don't zero in on one option and then get fixated on that option and start haggling with them. Because what happens when you start haggling, you don't get anywhere. Ultimately, you get stuck at a figure that's neither acceptable to you nor acceptable to them. So it's very important that we don't indulge in haggling. When you make your offer, have your explanation ready. Explain why you're making that offer. Help them to understand why it is important and why they should be accepting it. Now, what happens if you hear a ridiculous offer from them? I gave you the example of 10 lakhs and they're offering you 1 lakh. Reject that offer immediately and explain why you're rejecting. Tell them that, look, the amount that I'm asking from you is 10 lakhs and what you're offering me is 1 lakh. Now, it doesn't meet any of the principles of fairness. And if I have to make this claim against you, I'll be able to prove it and I'll be able to recover the money from it. So therefore, I'm rejecting this offer. Understand their constraints also. That's where empathy comes into plays a very important role there. Okay. If supposing, because they may be having some constraints, they may be having their own reasons for not being able to accept your offer. Ask them, what is stopping you from accepting this? What is stopping this from settling? Please help me to understand what your constraints are, what your problems are, so that we can both sit and discuss that and address the problems in a way that we can meet each other's needs. And in getting to yes, William Ury says, write their victory speech for them. Because they are going to be taking this, whatever offer that you're making, they're going to be taking to their constituency, to their principals. They may be having to report to somebody. Now, they should be able to go and convince, supposing they have to go and convince their board of directors. They should be able to convince their board of directors that this is a good offer. So for that, you explain to them why it is a good offer, so that when they go and explain, they are able to, that is actually they're able to go and tell their board or their principals or their constituency that, look, we have got a very good deal for ourselves. So William Ury says, write their victory speech for them. And what is most important is, in a negotiation, never lie. Always be honest, because once you lie and your lie is caught, may not be on the same day, maybe some other time, the trust factor will get very badly affected. And it's very easy to get a bad name. And if you're known as an unprincipled negotiator, nobody is ever going to trust you. So what is very important is to build the trust. And for that, you need to have some transparency. You need to have the honesty and integrity to show them that they can trust you. You have to earn their trust and confidence. So what I have tried to explain to you through this is, number one, understand what emotions you're feeling when you're going for the negotiation. What exactly is going on in your mind? Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling tensed up? How is this prospect of negotiation affecting your mind? Be conscious of that. And also understand that the other side might be experiencing the same thing. And this is where I was explaining the neuroscience part of it, that it becomes very important to understand what exactly are the emotions that we are feeling and why we are feeling that. So the moment you detect these emotions in you, think about how you're going to deal with that. Calm yourself and ensure that you approach the negotiation with an open mind, with the feeling that you're not going for a fight, but you're going for something that is going to be good for both of you. Okay, and treat the other side not as your adversary, but as somebody who's sharing the problem with you and for whom it is very important that both of you reach a deal. Okay, so that is where the scarf model becomes very important, because when you're getting into the negotiation, show them that you respect them, you respect their status. Okay, you are there not for the purpose of delaying or protracting anything. You're there for the purpose of finding a solution. So assure them of that certainty. Respect their autonomy, because autonomy is something where Sanjeev Bhargava asked me that question. See, we all have our own sense of autonomy about how we would like to do things. Okay, so they may have their own, for example, they may come with a certain agenda. They may have their own priorities. Okay, let's say that there are 4 or 5 issues that need to be resolved through the negotiation. Now, for them, there might be some issues which will be a priority, which may not be a priority to you. But keep that give and take and keep the process flexible so that you're able to respect what is important for them, at the same time convey what is important for you. So that autonomy becomes important. Build that sense of the team building, develop the trust with them, make them feel related to you, develop that connection with them by sharing with them that you're all on the same side and you belong to the same team and you're trying to find a solution together. And always be fair in the way you deal. So the scarf model becomes very important for you, because that has been developed based on, it's a brain-based model, which basically teaches you how to deal with people's emotions, how to make them feel calmer, how to make them feel better, how to make them trust you, how to build the trust and rapport with them. And once you build the trust and rapport, that is where your strategy, your planning, how you make the offers, what kind of questions you ask, how you explore their interests and needs, all this becomes very crucial. So then the other tips that I have given become very important on how you conduct the negotiation process. Now, coming to what kind of negotiation we are talking about. So whatever I have spoken so far is called as principled negotiation. Now, what is principled negotiation? Earlier, we used to have what is called as hard negotiation. Okay, let's say that I want to sell a car. My car I want to sell. Okay, and somebody approaches me whom I don't know. A stranger sees my ad in the paper, approaches me, and asks me what is the price of my car. Now, I have valued my car, let's say, at about 6 lakhs. But what I tell him is, my car price is 10 lakhs. I peg it at a much higher rate. Now, he doesn't accept that offer. And he says, these are the problems with your car, and therefore I'll be able to pay you only 3 lakhs for your car. So this is hard negotiation where both of us treat each other as adversaries. The idea is to outsmart each other, get a better deal for ourselves. And the haggling goes on. It turns into haggling at some point of time. And what happens is whoever is the smarter guy and whoever has the time on their hands, and whoever has the patience to wait, watch and wait, ultimately win. The other person doesn't feel happy about it. The other person feels let down, because if I sell my car, let's say for 3 or 4 lakhs, I'm not going to be happy about it. And if the other person has to buy the car at 8 or 9 lakhs, he's not going to feel happy about it. Okay. So that is called as hard negotiation. The other is soft negotiation. Soft negotiation is one when I want to sell my car and Vikash comes to know about it. And Vikash approaches me and says that, Jawad, I heard that you want to sell your car. How much do you expect for that? Now, Vikash is my friend. Now, though I'm expecting 6 lakhs for that, I don't tell him that. I tell him, Vikash, do you want to buy it? Vikash says, yes, it's for myself. I need it. And I tell him, you tell me what you would like to offer for that. Because I don't want to offend Vikash. He's my friend. So Vikash, let's say he says 3 lakhs. I give it to him for 3, but I'm not happy about it because I have lost. Okay, but I can't say anything to him because he's a good friend of mine. Or if Vikash is the soft guy and he tells me, no, Jawad, you tell me what's the price. And I tell him that, Vikash, I'm expecting about 6 or 7 lakhs in the market. Now Vikash is in a quandary because he doesn't want to pay that much. But because I've asked for that price, he has to agree to that. So that becomes soft negotiation, where you end up feeling unhappy about it, but you're making those concessions because you value the relationship more. So what happened was, in the Harvard negotiation program on negotiation was started by Harvard University. And there a lot of research was done on all these neuroscience and other things. And finally, they came to a conclusion that it neither need not be hard or it need not be soft. It can be principled negotiation. So what is this principled negotiation that we are talking about? They said, first and foremost, what you need to do is, we identify each other as a problem when we are negotiating. We identify each other as an adversary, because especially in a conflict situation, when a dispute arises, we are always, thinking of the other person as the problem, whether it is husband and wife relationship, whether it is a relationship between partners, whatever it might be, we treat each other as the problem. So they say that the first thing to do is separate the people from the problem. Help them to understand that they have a problem that is common to both of them, and they both need to work together to resolve it. That is why I spoke about the relatedness part of SCARF. The second thing they said is, focus on the interests and not on the positions. I'll give you a small example of a case that I mediated a long time back. Now, this was a case, it was a matrimonial dispute between husband and wife. They had a 5-year-old son. And it was referred to mediation. Husband was initially refusing to give divorce. He wanted to live with his wife, but wife was very insistent on the divorce. Finally, the husband agreed to give the divorce. And he also agreed that wife will have the custody of the child. There was an agreement on the maintenance and alimony and all that part of it. But on one point, we were stuck. The wife was saying, I want that house, the ancestral house of my husband, to be settled in my son's name. And the husband was saying, look, I can't do that. This is my ancestral property. After my father died, it came to me. After my death, it will go to my son, but I can't transfer it now. And that's how it's been conventionally coming down for generations in my family. Now, I can't transfer this house to my son like this. And she also wants to live in that house. And he says that he has other properties also where he can go and live. But he says that for me, it is sentimental. I have to live here in this house because this is where my father lived and died. My grandfather lived and died. I want to live here also. Now, this was going on. And then I asked the wife, why is this house important for you? Why do you want this house? And you'll be really surprised at the explanation that she gave. And I was surprised. She said that, sir, this house is in a very posh locality. And when we were together, we put my son in a very good school, which is very near this house. And it's an excellent school for my son. And we paid a lot of money for that to get him admission there. Now, I don't want to remove my son from the school because I'm going to be staying at a place which is about 15 kilometers from the house, from this school, because I can't afford a house in this location. So if my husband gives that house to my son and allows me to stay in the house, he has several properties. He can go and stay there. If he goes and stays there, I can stay in this house and it'll be easy for me to pick up and drop my son from school. He's only a 5-year-old child and it's going to be risky for him. If supposing I'm delayed, I'm not able to reach on time, what happens? So I went back to the husband and said that this is the reason why your wife wants the house. Because it's about the safety of your son and it's about the proximity to the school. And he says that, okay, if that is the important thing for her, I will do one thing. In addition to whatever I have agreed to, I will also take a house and rent near the school and I will pay the rent. Her problem is she can't pay the rent because it is not affordable for her. I will pay the rent for that. Because for me, my son's safety and his well-being is also important for me. So you see, the position here is, I want the house. The wife's position is, I want the house. The husband's position is, I cannot give the house for whatever reasons. But when we explore why this is important, you understand the interests. The interest is the safety of the child. And what is the need? The need is a house near the school. So when you explore, if you just focus on the positions, it's not enough. You need to explore what are the interests, what is driving this? Why do the parties want what they want? And why is this important for them? So this helps us to explore the interests, and then it becomes easy because that is where what is called as zone of possible agreement lies. So what William Ury and Roger Fisher said is, don't focus on the positions, understand the interests. And then they said that don't focus only on one solution. Try to generate multiple solutions. Brainstorm with each other. Try to find out what are the different ways in which this problem can be solved. And once you have multiple options, focus on whichever is the best, most suitable for you. And the fourth and most important thing they said was, always apply objective criteria. Because what happens is, suppose I gave you the car example, for instance. Now, if a principal negotiation were to take place, whether it was with the stranger or with Vikash, what we can agree upon is, look, I am valuing this car at 6 lakhs. Now let's do one thing. Let's go and get this valued with a person who's dealing in this, who's an expert in this, who can tell us, who can inspect the car and tell us what price it can fetch in the market. And let's agree on the price. So that is the objective criteria that we are talking about. So these are the 4 things that you need to keep in mind in a negotiation. Okay. So all along I have been talking. I hope Suman Preet questioned, good afternoon, sir. I have a question in context to private mediation. You said when you come to our place at Chandigarh. Okay, this I'll answer you separately, Suman Preet. It's not in connection with this. So what I'll do is I'll stop here. And if there are any questions, feel free to ask. I think one person was very unhappy with this presentation. 8787 I saw. So if you can let me know what is your objection and how you would have liked it to be, I'll really love to change my style of delivery.
That is only the negotiation. As you said that you have to move on and you can't please everyone. And everybody has his own style.
No, if there's some way, we are all looking for improvement, right? So,
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Even if you are the top, when Sachin Tendulkar was asked, what is it? He says that the early morning to go up, practice and practice.
Yeah.
So, and any player or anybody who's top, they will always say that you have to relook and revisit yourself.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think there's some question here. What if the interest of wife in that case be only getting the house in influence of ego? See, Divyam, let us understand one thing, okay? If supposing it was only a question of ego, getting the house for satisfying our own ego, then, the question will be, we will have to explore with her, okay, now look, what have you got now so far in this? What is important for you? So she may probably say that, getting a divorce is important for me. Number one, getting custody of my son is important for me. That is number two. And getting some reasonable alimony and maintenance for my son for child support is very important for me. Okay, now you have got all these things. And it is on this point about the house that we are stuck. Now, would you like to go back to the court and fight this out and lose all these other things which your husband has offered you? So what is your alternative? That is where the Batna and Vatna. So if you walk out of this negotiation, what is it that you're going to get? Are you going to get a better deal than this in the court? Is the court going to give you the house? Is the court going to direct your husband, hand over the house to your wife? So if you're not going to be able to get that, what would you prefer to do? Would you like to settle now and give up your demand for the house? Or are you going to fight it out? Now she has to take a call on that. Is that clear?
Somebody had asked me on a WhatsApp. He had said that, could you explain scarf once again?
Yeah. See, scarf is basically, there have been a lot of advances made in neuroscience recently, okay? A lot of research has been done. And I showed you the picture of the amygdala sometime back. And, the surprising thing is this was discovered very recently, sometime in 2000, by a scientist called Joseph Ledoux, who was working in New York University, who was doing his research in New York University. So what he found out was that earlier the impression was that whatever signals come to our brain, they straight away from the thalamus, they reach the neocortex, the frontal region, and there the information gets processed. And we react to whatever we see. Like supposing there's a mad dog chasing me, the signal, the barking of the dog and the dog running towards me reaches my neocortex, thalamus, and then my neocortex. And my neocortex tells me run from there. But what happened was Joseph Ledoux's discovery showed that the amygdala is there and the signal first reaches the amygdala from the thalamus. One signal reaches the amygdala and there's another signal that reaches the neocortex. The signal to the amygdala reaches much faster than the signal to the neocortex. And the amygdala starts reacting immediately. It immediately secretes the hormones and it tells your body to secrete those hormones. And you start feeling that fear, because the moment you see something like that, just go to the, go to the zoo and watch a tiger. Because I was once in the Hyderabad Zoo and there was a big enclosure there and the tiger was there and it came charging at us. Okay, suddenly it roared and it came charging. Now we know that there is the tiger cannot cross the enclosure and reach us, but nevertheless, we felt a kind of fear in us, a chill going down our spine. Okay, so that is what the amygdala does. It triggers that reaction immediately. Okay, so what happened was when this was discovered, it was found that this was actually, it's very important for us because these emotions are very important, because these emotions helped us to survive when we were wandering around in the forests and the deserts. But now we are living in a civilized world. Okay, we don't have lions and tigers chasing us, but we have people, we have each other. And what we do to each other can also trigger the same kind of reaction that was being triggered by looking at a tiger charging at us, or looking at some very beautiful flower, or looking at some nice fruit that we could eat, or some nice food that we could eat. So it triggered the same kind of emotions in us, same kind of hormones were secreted in our body. So when this discovery was made, this man called David Rock did some further research on it. And he said that in the social domain that we operate in, as friends, as family, as co-workers, as co-professionals, wherever we are, whatever we are doing, whatever our work is, there are certain things that trigger the same kind of reaction in us. Let's say that, for example, Divyam, I'll come back to how to hack the amygdala. Okay, it's a very interesting question. I have heard of amygdala hijack. I'll tell you how that happens. Okay. So what happens is what David Rock's research showed him is that there are 5 social domains which, if affected, can trigger the same threat or reward response in the amygdala. Okay. Now, for example, if you if your friend is wearing a pair of jeans and coming, and you look at your friend and say, "Hey, what an awful pair of jeans you're wearing." No, it is affecting his status. Okay, because he has a certain perception of himself. And when you're attacking that, when you're attacking his sense of status, it triggers anger in him. Okay, the same kind of emotions that he would otherwise feel if he was in a forest. Okay, so what he found out was that there are 5 domains which, when affected, create the same kind of reaction in. So that is status, certainty. Like certainty, for example, if supposing I have been married for, let's say, 35 years. Now, suddenly I get a doubt. Does my wife really love me? So that creates a certain uncertainty in my mind. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to my relationship. And that creates a sense of anger, fear, sorrow, disgust, all these things in my mind, okay, in my brain. So certainty is something that becomes very important. Now, supposing I'm working for someone, working for a company. Now, I don't know whether my company is going to terminate me tomorrow. I'm hearing some rumors that there's going to be a large scale, retrenchment of employees. And I'm scared that I might be a part of that. And that generates a sense of fear in me. So certainty becomes important. Same way, autonomy. From the age of 2, we start feeling a sense of autonomy. We like to do things the way we want to do. Okay, children today, they don't like to wear the dresses that you buy for them. Okay, because they feel they have the right to decide what they should be wearing, what they should be eating. So the sense of autonomy, sometimes when it gets affected, like for example, too much of control by parents may affect a child's sense of autonomy, especially when the child is a teenager or growing up. They start thinking that they know what they should do for themselves, and they would like to exercise that autonomy. Husband and wife relationship. If supposing either of them are too controlling and want the other person to do exactly what they want them to do, they're taking away that sense of autonomy. So that creates, again, generates in us a reaction in the body, okay, in the brain. Relatedness. Let's say that you're a part of a team. Let's say you're playing IPL with your team, and you're going to your locker room, and your teammates are sitting and discussing some important strategy. And when they see you, they keep quiet. They don't talk about it. You feel that you're left out. You're being isolated. Okay, you're not a part of the team. So that relatedness gets affected over there. Now, fairness is something very subjective, because what is fair to me may not be fair to somebody else. Okay, so again, if I feel that my father has dealt with me in a very unfair manner, my father has given to me a lesser property than what he has given to my brother, I feel that I have been dealt with unfairly. And it triggers the same kind of response in my brain. So this is what is the scarf model. So these are the 5 social domains that David Rock identified. And he said, basically, this research was done for how organizations should be functioning, because what organizations should be paying attention to. But what we find is this has got a universal application. So even when I'm doing a mediation, I'm looking at the parties and I'm trying to understand that which of these domains is violated. For example, if there has been no mutual respect between each other, status is affected. If they are not very sure about how the relationship is working out, certainty is affected. If if there has been too much of control from one person over the other person, autonomy is affected. So what you do when you understand this, you're able to, actually focus on that and say how that can be restored. How that sense of violation or sense of fear or sense of disgust or sense of sorrow that has been generated, the emotion that has been generated, how that can be set right. So you're able to explore that. So when you're approaching a negotiation also, it becomes very important, because when you're going as a negotiator, you have to understand that what the other person, what your feeling is also being felt by the other person. So it becomes important for you to establish the trust and rapport. So when you address these things, these concerns which the other person might be having about you, you're able to establish the trust and rapport. I hope I've made myself clear.
Yeah, perfect.
Any other questions?
No, just in fact, the question was SCARF is an abbreviation. How do you define all those words?
Yeah, SCARF is S stands for status, C stands for certainty, A stands for autonomy, R stands for relatedness, and F stands for fairness.
Yeah, that was the entire crux.
Yeah.
One wanted to understand. So thank you, Jawad. As usual, we can see in the chat, people have actually loved it, and you have been able to negotiate through the time and make the things hammer in the right manner. Thank you. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. So
Stay blessed.
thank you
And
very
tomorrow,
much, Vikash, for the opportunity.
tomorrow, stay connected with us at 5:30 with Justice V. Ram Kumar. He will teach us the practical skills, the practice and procedure of declaring a witness hostile. Thank you. Yeah.